Hey there, Black Swamp fam. Today we are sitting down with Alana Wiesing. She's a Black Swamp educator, the principal timpanist for the Tucson Symphony Orchestra, and the president of the Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion. That's a lot of different hats, but she somehow keeps it all straight. Alana took some time to talk with us about her work with the NDCP and NOI+F. That is the Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion and the National Orchestral Institute and Festival. Both of these programs really focus on developing the whole person, not just the musician, but also the person playing that instrument, developing their character and mentoring that person in a way that they have good footing to get into the orchestral world, whether that be an audition or to become an educator. They are working hard to show these students the doors that are open to them. Alana is a wealth of information and had so much to share today. We're going to link all that in the description below. Be sure to like and subscribe and enjoy the conversation. Hello, Alana. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Nathan. It's really wonderful to be chatting with you today.
You are a longtime Black Swamp educator, the principal timpanist for the Tucson Symphony, and the president for the Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion. That is a laundry list of things. How do you keep all of that straight?
I had to get really good at time management and keeping a lot of balls that I'm juggling in the air at one time. And I've sort of mastered the art of compartmentalization. Maybe mastered is a little too strong of a word, but it's something that I actively practice when I'm wearing all these different hats. And the key is to not wear all of those hats at the same time. That when I'm playing as the principal timpanist with the Tucson Symphony, all of my mental energy and capacity is focused on that activity at that time. And same with any of the other roles that I serve or hats that I wear. And that just allows me to bring my best self at all times to all of the different ways that I'm contributing to our art form.
That's awesome. And that is a skill in itself to be able to separate those hats. At Black Swamp, we're a small business, so everyone has a bunch of different hats that we wear. But I would say they stack on top of each other and are sliding off and doing that stuff depending on what the day is. But that's a really valuable skill, especially for, I think, students who are coming out into the real world and being like, okay, I want to do one thing, but I'm also passionate about other things, and knowing that it's okay to change your hat.
Absolutely. And it's encouraged to explore all of those different things. There's so many cool ways that we get to explore this career and make a living as a musician, whether you're a performer, an educator, an advocate. There are so many really cool ways that you can contribute to this field. And I'm really thankful that I have so many different avenues to be able to explore all of those passions that I have.
Absolutely. Let's dig into the most recent passion. You are not only an alumni, but now a faculty member for the National Orchestral Institute and Festival. We have been supporting you and the festival for a little while now, and I'm wondering if you can let people know what it's about for those who don't know.
Absolutely. National Orchestral Institute and Festival is an innovative, groundbreaking orchestral festival for aspiring professional orchestral musicians. And it takes pre-professional musicians, collegiate age, undergrad, graduate, postgraduate students who are really serious about pursuing a career as a full-time orchestral musician. And I have been incredibly honored to serve on the faculty now for, I think this was my 6th summer on faculty. And I attended the festival as a student for 2 summers, the summer in between the 2 years of my master's and the summer right after I finished my master's degree. And those 2 summers were completely formative and transformative in how I viewed approaching a professional life in this field. And it wasn't just about the rehearsals and concerts and experiences working with incredible guest conductors and faculty and guest artists. All of those things were obviously the draw to attend the festival in the first place, which were incredible. But there were also so many aspects of my time at that festival that I got to experience when I was a student. And I'm incredibly thankful and honored to now contribute to as a faculty member that help prepare students for careers in this industry beyond just learning how to play your instrument or learning how to become better at the environment of a symphonic musician. But things like professional development, having seminars with faculty about what it's like to traverse the career path and all the things off the stage that are just as important for students to learn as the skills that they're cultivating with their instrument and on the stage. And I think that they also do an incredible job at assessing the current landscape of orchestral performance and pushing the boundaries of collaboration and making sure that they're effectively engaging living composers who are coming in and having experiences with the composition fellows and with the students. We're actively performing and premiering works. NOI has also been incredible about commissioning composers and performing premieres of these works, which is exactly what most professional orchestras should be doing and actively do, to keep our art form relevant and current and continuing to push the boundaries of what this art form is capable of and its capacity to continue to not just retain existing audiences, but bring new people into the fold and try to make it a more inclusive, welcoming environment for people. From that perspective, I think NOI offers one of the best, if not the best, atmosphere at trying to train and invite in a complete musician and preparing them holistically for everything that they can expect. I will say a highlight of my time too as a student there were community outreach and engagement types of programming, where we basically get to engage with younger kids or perform chamber music in an environment that's much more intimate, much more connected. You get to directly engage with patrons and donors and get to see the humanity behind the art. And it's not just that separation between the musician and the audience. And it's important that the students get that experience to connect because it's a huge part of what I do in my role at the Tucson Symphony as well. We play several concerts and events every year as a part of the percussion quartet. So those events allow us to engage more directly. And I've just been so incredibly honored and thankful to now give back to a festival that gave so much to me as a student. And every summer that I get to be there, I go 110% and make sure that every single moment is focused on the student experience and being able to share as much knowledge as I possibly can, as well as providing a safe and steady support network for those students, not just during their time at the festival, but also making sure that I can continue to be a resource for them as they continue to traverse their career paths. But I do want to say a huge thank you to NOI+F for their support of me over the years, specifically in all facets of my involvement, both as a student and now the great honor and pleasure of being a faculty member and being able to give back knowledge that in part I learned at NOI+F to be able to share with students now. But also wanted to thank Black Swamp and their support of my time at that festival. And the students' faces absolutely light up when I tell them that I have gear to give away from Black Swamp, and because they understand the reputation and the incredible craftsmanship and products and instruments and tools that the company creates and is able to contribute to our industry. And so the students also love receiving stuff from you guys.
A truly full circle experience for you. You had said it was like a life changing event for you, and you had the experience to go there 2 times before becoming a faculty member. Have you seen some major changes in how the festival operates, or things that maybe you've directly contributed that make that amazing environment that you were talking about?
So I've only continued to see the festival grow and improve over time. My experience has always been amazing, and the impression that I think that festival creates in the community and the reputation it has always been outstanding. But to your question, I've been really thankful to be able to continue to see it grow and contribute to how that festival impacts its students. Part of my time there, in addition to teaching lessons, leading master classes and sectionals, providing real-time feedback in orchestra rehearsals, attending performances, has also been creating specific presentations in a more lecture or dialogue and Q&A type of format for the students. I've given presentations about my work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, and how various arts organizations have been incorporating and learning from their involvement in that work and continuing to build upon that. That also connects really well to my work with the NDCP as well. And I've also given presentations about the audition and tenure process journey, basically walking students through the very beginning stages of, you see an audition announcement, how you can approach preparing for an audition opportunity, traversing through that preparation process all the way through the actual audition itself. You win the job. Now what? How do you adjust to life in a new ensemble, in a new city? How do you properly traverse and seek support through the tenure review process when you have a new job in your first year or two in the position, and all things to be looking out for and different resources that students should have that awareness of as they traverse and transition into the world of professional music through that stage where they have attained tenure in that ensemble. And those kinds of conversations are conversations that I wish that I'd had when I was in school. But it's important that they can get in an environment like this, and awareness as well of musicians unions, which I also have significant involvement as the president of the Tucson Federation of Musicians, which is American Federation of Musicians Local 33 chapter here in Tucson and in Southern Arizona. So that also just builds on the amount of hats that I wear and the level of involvement that I have, not just for myself and on behalf of myself in the industry, but also speaks to my desire to spread that information and provide that level of awareness and support, not just for the next generation, as I do in the context of my time at NOI, but I also do that and seek to provide that level of support and be that cheerleader for musicians in my own community here in Tucson as well.
Amazing. There's so much good stuff in there. I wanna dig into every little bit, but I'm wondering, how competitive is the landscape for someone who's interested in attending the institute?
It's very competitive. They hold auditions across many major cities, a lot of which have major music schools and conservatories at them. As far as percussion and timpani auditions are concerned, students are definitely expected to do both during their time at the festival. And those auditions are by video only and online submissions. So what I really enjoy about that is that it allows for students to perform on gear and in spaces that they're acclimated to, and at their own convenience. It provides a greater level of accessibility and removes that barrier to have to pay to travel anywhere. And so from that perspective, I really appreciate that they do the video auditions for timpani and percussion specifically, but the level is consistently very high and admissions decisions are very competitive getting into the festival. Something that I'm also really proud of and really thankful for is an ongoing collaboration that NOI and the Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion have together, which allows for one of the emerging artists, which is our collegiate aged cohort in the NDCP, if they go through the normal admissions and auditions process with NOI and they are accepted, then NOI and the NDCP will jointly allow for that student to participate in the festival completely free of charge. Every expense is completely jointly covered by both organizations, which is such a beautiful thing. And we're really thankful that they're able and willing to help support that with us. And in addition to that, it allows for two other emerging artists from the NDCP to also be able to attend during the week that I'm serving on faculty to audit the festival. So they're able to attend every rehearsal, every masterclass sectional, participate in lessons and mentoring sessions with me, and get as much out of that experience as possible, also completely free of charge. So it takes what is currently a predominantly virtual program in the NDCP and allows it to have some legs in person, and people actually get to engage and meet with me and work with me in person and experience all of the incredible resources and activities that NOI has to offer. So that also increases that level of visibility and opportunity for our students, while also providing greater opportunities and accessibility as well. And that has been such a beautiful, mutually beneficial collaboration for both organizations. But to your point, that helps to bring down those barriers. But the general level of performance across when I was a student there, as well as continuing my time on faculty, the level of play has consistently been very high and very impressive from these students over the years.
That's awesome. And you've made a great segue for us to talk about your work as president of the Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion. For someone who's not familiar, can you please tell us about it?
Absolutely. So the NDCP is a support to and a resource for underrepresented and underserved communities within the concert percussion community. And we do that in a multitude of different ways. We have our youth and emerging artist programs. Our youth artist program is targeted towards middle and high school students. Our emerging artist program is targeted towards collegiate and post-collegiate students up through the age of 25. And that is an audition process that we pride ourselves on, operates slightly differently than a traditional admissions or auditions process. We're not just looking at how well did they play their audition. We're also looking at their drive, their determination, their home environments, the level of access or opportunity that they've had up to this point, their desire to want to really become professional percussionists in the industry. And we're assessing the complete picture, the whole human in that process, in addition to the level of performance and proficiency there. And that allows us to cultivate that program in a way where we can personalize it and really be able to best address how to meet that specific person and musician as best and as completely as we possibly can. And we only admit 5 students in each program, 5 youth artists, 5 emerging artists. And we have a schedule that runs concurrently to an academic calendar. So we host virtual masterclasses most Sunday evenings from September through May. And those classes can either have both cohorts at them, or we may have a class just for the youth artists or just for the emerging artists. And having that few people in the program was a very conscious decision on our part to make sure that it never felt too big, and that each student really felt that when they were speaking to any of the guests and our cohort faculty that we have, they really felt like they were being heard and they got their time to really directly engage with all of our amazing faculty that we bring in to have these classes. And especially in those smaller spaces where it's just a class for just the youth artists or just the emerging artists, when they share a video for feedback or when there's a Q&A session, there's plenty of direct engagement. And that level of attention, I feel, is so powerful and can leave such an incredible impact on these students. And we try to diversify our programming in as many ways as possible. In terms of the content that we share with our students. And that can be straight ahead masterclass content, a great class just on snare drum technique or orchestral mallet percussion or complementary percussion, tambourine, triangle, bass drum, cymbals. So we cover plenty of content across various instruments. But we also try to diversify the content in our professional development sessions, similar to the sessions that I was talking about that NOI also offers to its students, talking about things outside of performance and outside of being on stage, how to traverse a career, how to network, how to make different connections within the industry, different facets of the music industry that can be explored, arts administration, composition, collaboration. There are so many different ways that you can make a career in this industry. And we want to make sure that our students are aware of that and well equipped to explore everything that they want to explore. And we also try to bring in as many different perspectives in our faculty as possible. People who are primarily performers, primarily educators. Across the board, most of our faculty also do a lot of different things and have a lot of different backgrounds and areas of expertise that they can offer our students as well. So we do our best to try and bring in a lot of different kinds of people within the percussion industry, and even have classes hosted by folks who are non-percussionists, who are arts professionals in their own regard that can share their experience. So those master classes are a big part of what we do, but we also seek to financially support our students as best as we can. We hold 2 different financial aid programs. One is for the students who are actively in our youth and emerging artist programs called the Virtual Gear Garage, where several times a year we'll send out a form to the students and they can request support in so many different ways. They can request things like gear, snare drum sticks, method books, a new triangle, a new tambourine, which Black Swamp has generally donated to us over the years, which has been amazing, to things like financial support for auditions, application fees for college, for summer music programs, travel expenses for auditions, whether they be collegiate or professional, accommodations. We've supported students being able to attend PASIC for the first time. And we've supported audio interfaces. We've supported recording equipment. We've supported all sorts of different types of support. But the goal with that program is also to meet the students and where they're at and what their interests are to the best of our ability, and do our best to try and allocate resources and be as equitable with considering those requests and making those distributions as we possibly can. We also support our alumni in our Alumni Futures Grant. So people who are no longer a part of our active youth and emerging artist programs, but are alumni of those programs, we want to still be able to support them throughout the course of their careers. And so they can write to us twice a year. We have a spring grant and a fall grant where they can come to us basically with the same types of requests that they come to us for the Virtual Gear Garage. And we assess those on an as needed basis as well. And then the real unique part of the NDCP that I'm really particularly proud of is our mentorship program, which is really special and allows the cohorts within themselves to genuinely connect and get to know each other better. But we also pair the students with professionals in the field. So it's two different parts. We allow our emerging artists, our older collegiate cohort, the opportunity to mentor our youth artists, and we have rotating cycles so that they all get to learn from each other and speak with each other multiple times over the course of the season. And we found that that's a really helpful and approachable way to do it, because there are some questions I know for sure that a high schooler or a middle schooler may not feel completely comfortable asking a professional. There may be a level of intimidation or shyness or whatever you may call it there, that if they're approaching someone who's just a little bit older than them and a little bit further along on the same path that they're also wanting to traverse, that also creates that element of approachability, of safety, where both parties can really be vulnerable and share facets of their experiences. And then we also pair our emerging artists with either our cohort faculty or others of what we call our professional members, which are basically professionals, whether they be performers, educators, arts administrators, composers, freelancers, you name it. We pair them based on the areas that our emerging artists are most interested in learning more about. I send a very detailed mentorship survey to them every year so that they can indicate various topics that they're interested in learning more about. And based on their answers, I can go through and say, okay, because you want to learn about X, Y, and Z, I think this professional member can be invaluable to you because those are their areas of expertise and those are things that they can really speak strongly to and help you with. And so those are the main three areas, really. We educate, we financially support, and we mentor. And I think the real strength also in the NDCP is the strong sense of community that we've been able to build over 5 years. And we're entering our 6th season this fall. And it's really special when we have alumni who come to us and say, I just got to meet so-and-so when I took this college audition, or I got to finally meet these people at PASIC for the first time this year. And even connecting at professional auditions, that's really what it's all about, is taking the virtual to being in person and forming genuine connections that will last a lifetime. It's a small world, our music industry, and I think it's important that we stick together. And the other strongest facet of this for me within that sense of community is the power and the empowerment of being on those near weekly Zoom meetings and looking into the gallery of everybody who's on that call and feeling that sense of belonging. Sometimes for the very first time, you're on that call and you see people who look like you and have similar or identical experiences to you. And a lot of times when students apply to our program, they're not necessarily getting that in their current environment, whether that be their middle school or high school, their collegiate environment, their percussion studio, wherever it may be. And I think it's so powerful that people can finally see themselves potentially for the first time and really experience that level of genuine vulnerability and inclusion. And it's a great honor for me to be able to be in those calls and help to support that and be there for those students. And our board works to support those students in all of the ways that I just described. It's really the most important and my favorite project that I've ever done. And it's seriously such an honor to not just lead the organization, but to even just be a part of it. It's so special, and I'm looking forward to the work that we'll continue to do for years to come.
That's amazing. Seriously, there's so much passion in everything you're talking about. That sense of community, even though being spread across online, I think that is huge. To find that connection, incredibly powerful and truly a network. It does remind me of a conversation that Tim and Rainer Carroll recently had. So we were talking about ABOP, the Alliance Black Orchestral Percussionists, and mentoring that whole person, finding not only educational avenues, but ways to develop the whole person. Incredibly meaningful stuff that goes beyond just the music. And it sounds like your work with the NDCP and going to the National Orchestral Institute, it's the same thing. You're really taking these students and opening doors that they may not have had access to previously. So it's amazing work that you're doing. If someone is interested in supporting your work with the NDCP, how could they do so?
Feel free to visit and follow us on our socials. We have an Instagram, we have a Facebook. Our Instagram is at Percussion Diversity Network, and our Facebook is Network for Diversity in Concert Percussion. And then we also have a website, percussiondiversitynetwork.org. And that's probably the best place where you'll get the most comprehensive overview of who we are, what we do, and our various programs. You'll also see on our website a page where you can donate, and that money goes directly to our students and our programs. No one who is working on the board at the NDCP takes a penny for any of the work that we're doing. So all of the money that you donate goes directly to the students and being able to support and further their careers. But please feel free to find us and follow us on socials and check out our website to learn more. And as the summer goes on and as we get into the fall, we're going to be posting some really amazing updates as we head into our 6th season.
Okay, well, we'll keep a lookout for those exciting announcements, and we'll link all of those socials down in the description. So I love to talk about gear. As a percussionist, it is very apparent that you do not play one instrument, you play the world of percussion. So as a timpanist, that is your bread and butter, say, but you are also a well-rounded percussionist. How important is it for, would you say, either the students who are being mentored through the NDCP or at the orchestral festival, how important is it for these students to have access to high quality gear at the youngest age?
It's transformational. I think it's of the utmost importance. And what I'm really thankful for is that through Black Swamp, I am able to play instruments that truly allow me to directly express my artistry and share my voice musically with the world. And the products that y'all create allow students and professionals alike to do that with ease, and to do so at a completely accessible price point as well. The value for price in terms of the quality of instruments that you all make and are readily available is bar none, truly. And I wouldn't be an educator with you all and want to endorse your products if I didn't completely believe in Black Swamp's ability to be able to do that. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is students being able to have access to this gear is so important because it's important for students to be able to have the easiest pathway possible to discover and to be able to further cultivate their artistic voice. And so it's one thing to be able to continue to develop your musicianship, your technique, your aptitude. But if the gear isn't able to properly respond to what it is that you are seeking to do and what you are seeking to express, all of the colors that you're seeking to paint with, so to speak, then it lessens the impact and the ability to directly be able to access all of those different colors with which to paint. And so that level of accessibility and be able to perform on high quality gear is paramount. And that's something that the NDCP seeks to do in its virtual gear garage, is allowing students the opportunity to request various instruments and various pieces of gear, a lot of which happen to be Black Swamp Percussion products. And I don't think that's a coincidence, truly. Yeah. And the fact that they're requesting that gear is a testament to y'all as a company, but also to the students' desire to want to have high quality instruments and be able to explore. And it's the nuance, really. It's the ability to be able to provide a level of input to an instrument or utilizing a particular mallet, and being able to explore all of the different ways that not just how the student can input with that gear, but also the output, right? The diverse array of sounds that the instrument or the mallet with which you're using to play the instrument can allow the student or the professional alike to be able to get so many different sound qualities, colors, timbres, textures, whatever you're contributing to in that sonic landscape. It's everything, truly, because the instruments that you use and the mallets you use are a direct reflection of your artistry and how you wish to express and communicate the way that you hear sound up here to how it actually comes out, whether that's in the practice room or on the stage. It's important at every stage of a musician's career, whether they're a student or a professional, to be able to have access to the highest quality gear at all times.
That's awesome. I feel like finding your voice as a musician can be difficult if you're fighting with the instrument the whole time. So when a student is playing on a high quality instrument, but still is not finding that voice, how do you teach touch? How do you teach feel? How do you teach expression, especially for younger students?
That's a really good question. And the biggest thing I usually like to tell students is that they need to be able to conceive the sound. They need to have an understanding of exactly how they want the sound to come across and have a vision in their mind of how they want the music to go and how they want the sound to come out in order to have a chance at effectively being able to produce the sound on the instrument. Because if you're simply going into the practice room or into a lesson and you're trying something and say a teacher gives you a piece of feedback, if the student isn't able to develop their sense of, okay, I'm taking this information that either my teacher is telling me or a conductor in a rehearsal is telling me, if I'm not able to think about that and be able to translate that, then it's going to be really difficult, because I often, especially with beginner students, just see they just want to play, which is great. We want to retain and build on that level of passion and enthusiasm, but it needs to have direction, right? And so in order to have that direction, it's about cultivating that student's ability to understand that hearing and seeing is believing. So I'll demonstrate things for them too and say, this is the sound. This is how it's produced. This is why it works. And really being able to walk through the various steps, and then they can see it and hear it for themselves as well. Then they actually start to have the ability to create that visualization, and they have that muscle memory, both in terms of what they can remember with their brain, what they're hearing with their ears, and what they're seeing with their eyes. So instead of just being in a practice room and just aimlessly repeating the same passage over and over again, hoping to achieve different results, if they stop for even just 30 seconds and are willing to ask themselves those tough questions of, why didn't that work? What am I doing that is contributing to my process of practicing this passage that is allowing it to not work? What are some different things I can do and try to improve this to get the result that I want? What is the result that I want? And having that powerful line of questioning gives practice intention and direction. So it's no longer aimless, and it only speaks to having high quality gear, that the highest quality gear will respond with a greater level of nuance and sensitivity. So when you're actually going for these highly specific outcomes, especially as you're taking professional auditions and you're at the professional level, you're going for the most nuance and the highest quality sounds possible. And the only way to get there is to really ask yourself, what are sometimes some very difficult questions? But it's important to have that awareness and really break things down and have a vision of what you want and the result that you want to hear in order to get there. And the high quality gear is only going to amplify the results and make them even more obvious and have even greater level of responsiveness to that nuance of input. But that's what I try and emphasize with my students is don't just say that you think something didn't sound good if it didn't go the way you wanted. Be able to ask yourself why it didn't go the way you wanted. What is it that I want? That to me helps to shape the musician, and it's helped to allow me to traverse as a professional, because that feedback loop, it never ends. I'm always asking myself, how can I be the best musician I can possibly be? How can I build on things that I've already learned? And how can I continue to play, not perform play, but explore play? How can I keep it engaging? How can I keep it fun? How can I turn something that I think most people would perceive as a problem and turn it into, ooh, I want to figure this out. Like, I'm excited to try a lot of different things and really put myself through those paces to figure that out. Like, to me, I kind of turn it into a game. Like, it becomes engaging. It becomes fun. It becomes exploratory, as opposed to like, this again, like, I can't believe this is still a problem. Like, I thought I fixed this yesterday. Why am I coming back in today and I still can't do this? Also, instill that reminder in students, like, this is fun. What we're doing here is a great time. There are so many other career paths that you could have chosen that are legitimately life-threatening and very stressful. We have to remember at the core of this, like, we get to do something that is so fun and engaging, and it's a career path where you get to continue to learn and grow and push yourself. And having that be at the center of any quote problem that a student is having, I think is a powerful reframing of allowing that student to grow and continue to feel empowered and want to grow and want to learn. And that's something that they can continue to carry with themselves throughout their student experience and throughout their professional career.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. I feel like self-reflection in the practice room was not my priority for undergrad. It was, I have 45 minutes. Let's blast through this as fast as possible. But to really ask yourself why you're painting with the colors you are, why you're choosing mallets, why you're choosing a specific tambourine or cymbal, that's the fun part. You are actively building your voice. You are figuring out how you want to express yourself. So I think that's amazing advice to give to students. Along that same line of advice, for someone who's on the audition circuit, what's some advice you would give them?
I would say to still approach that process with that same attitude. Obviously, it's great to go into an audition because you want to win. You want to have the position. You want to play professionally. You want to get paid to do this thing, right? That's obviously driver number one, I think, for basically everyone taking an audition. But I think it's also a really healthy approach to take auditions Whereas you're not viewing it as a competition against all of the other people and candidates who are at the audition, even though, of course, in a literal sense, that is what it is. It's important to still mentally understand and recognize that. But I think it's a powerful reframing to think about it as a competition with yourself. How can I continue to be a better musician than who I was yesterday? How can I continue to build my knowledge and awareness and bring my best self to the audition? And some of the best advice and insight, and one of the most empowering things I ever heard when I was taking auditions, was that an audition is one of the only times in your professional career where you get to go on stage and you get to play the repertoire the way that you want to play the repertoire. It's your chance to fully share everything you know and every bit of preparation and insight that you have to that music without any other input or say. Because when you're in the job, of course, you're bringing your experience, you're bringing your knowledge, you've practiced your parts, you show up to rehearsals prepared, and you have that interpretive voice that you're bringing to that. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately that conductor on the podium that has that final say of how things are going to go for anyone who's on that stage. And so if they're asking you to change something, then it's also your responsibility to adapt and meet that challenge and meet that ability to accept that request and change whatever it is that you're doing in order to be able to meet that demand. But in an audition, you get to make those choices for yourself. And some people may view that as intimidating. I chose to see that as, oh my gosh, this is freedom. Like, I get to really study this repertoire and listen to recordings and look at scores against my parts and get to make those decisions of how to best meet every moment through every excerpt that is requested on this audition. And if you're viewing it as an opportunity, if you're viewing it as a way to showcase your interpretation and your artistic expression, then taking an audition becomes a much better experience. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not stressful at all, because that would be disingenuous, because there's obviously awareness of what's at stake. But at the same time, you can also reframe that as opportunity. You know, it's not like it's a burden to get a job. It's an amazing feeling to have a job doing what you love. I would recommend for students and anyone on the audition circuit to view it as an opportunity and view it as a way to really check in with yourself. And anytime I've taken auditions, I don't just rinse and repeat things that I've always done. Even if I've played a handful of excerpts the same way for years, and that may be the way that I continue to do them, I will always take every single piece or every single excerpt to the drawing board and ask myself, is this working? Am I getting the results that I want to get? Am I really communicating what I want to say through this excerpt by using these mallets, using this tuning scheme, phrasing in this way? There are so many different questions that I ask myself, and I've made pretty major changes in past auditions because I was willing to ask those questions. Sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't, but it's always giving yourself that allowance to have that freedom to explore and be able to treat each audition as a genuine learning experience for yourself. That obviously, if you advance it at an audition, that committee is giving you the signal of, hey, we like what you're doing. This is working for us so far. And the further you advance, that gets reinforced of what you're doing is working. or it's at least creating that positive impression and response from that specific committee of people on that day, in that room, on those drums, in those conditions. So there are so many different things to factor in with that. But I think as auditions go on and as you take more of them, you continue to gain perspective, and it's what you choose to do with that perspective that really counts. So I would recommend that people take auditions with the intent of wanting to continue to build and elevate their musicianship, because whether or not they win the job on that day or through those days, that's always our mission as musicians anyway. We should always be wanting to learn and improve all the time. And it just so happens that an audition is a major catalyst and motivator to really streamlining and accelerating that process. But you can still apply that process outside of the audition sphere. You can apply it in the practice room just on your day to day. You can apply it as you're preparing for a recital. An audition, in a way, is a form of a recital, or at least you can view it that way. You're on stage by yourself, unaccompanied, showcasing your skills and your aptitude with various pieces of repertoire. So it is what you make of it. And I would recommend that people turn it into an opportunity and view it as an opportunity to learn and to really fully artistically express yourself, as opposed to something that, even though it is inherently stressful, you don't have to view it that way.
That's an awesome answer. That is a really good answer. How do you see students adapting to the orchestral world of today? And in turn, how is the orchestral world adapting?
I'm going to answer that in two separate parts. So the audition circuit, even since I was really young and first taking auditions to where it's at now, has changed a lot. I think there is more of an emphasis on audition specific approaches, sort of training to play for the audition. And while that can be helpful for winning the audition, which is ultimately the goal, sometimes those skills don't translate to performance in the job. And I think the biggest issue I've had with auditions over the years has been their inability to completely assess all of the skills that you need to be a successful and properly adaptive orchestral musician, or any musician in any context, really, because when you're in an audition, you are not assessed on your ability to listen across an ensemble. And a lot of auditions now aren't doing chamber rounds, which I tend to agree with. But if they're not, then you're not hearing how they play with others, right? How they're able to either listen, blend, respond, take cues from one another. That is a whole skill set that is missing from the audition process and is usually assessed after that person gets the job. And that's what the probationary period and tenure review is for. In preparing for the audition, a lot of times those skills aren't really assessed. And it's important for students to remember in that environment, that's what your large ensembles are for. It's not just, credits on your transcript. It's not just, I have this thing to do. It's the opportunity to hone in those skills and really practice all those things that are outside of the audition environment. Now, the audition environment does assess a lot. It does reveal a great deal about various facets of someone's musicianship, their time, their rhythm, their intonation, their stylistic awareness, their technical proficiency, dynamic contrast, ability to properly accentuate different articulations, dynamics, all sorts of things, and stylistic awareness, period awareness of various composers and the span of their repertoire across a list. It varies across hundreds of years. having that understanding and then being able to do your best to try and translate that by yourself, that reflects a huge amount of musicianship. The shift has been in percussion and timpani auditions specifically is the sound has gotten a little bit smaller. It's gotten a little bit softer. Most people are taking a 14x4 drum or a piccolo drum to auditions now. And cymbal sizes in auditions are getting smaller. General dynamic range is getting smaller. I can understand that. You're by yourself and a lot of our instruments tend to be pretty loud or easily project. But that's typically not the case in the orchestra. In the orchestra, you have to be able to project. Your sound has to be able to cut through 70, 80, 90 other people on stage. When you're doing that sound that you create when you're by yourself versus a sound that you seek to create when you're in an ensemble is different. I mean, for example, I typically use in the orchestra sticks that are at least 1 or 2 steps harder than what I would use in an audition setting, just because the sound needs to be able to cut and project properly. Because a lot of times when you're in the audience and you're listening back, or if I set a recorder out in the hall and I listen back to my playing, in those early days, I was finding, this actually is kind of washy. It doesn't have the clarity or the level of projection that I would want it to. Maybe in an audition, it would come across as too harsh. It's interesting in that way. So that's what I would say about audition trends versus performance trends. I have learned that I tend to compartmentalize them a little bit. There are facets of both that need to be present in either arena in order to find success. But there are some facets that I find I'm just using when I'm taking auditions, and some facets that I need to either amplify or just use when I'm performing.
I do want to ask a quick question. You talk about a smaller size. This is kind of relating back to a conversation we had with Rainer Carroll, where he talked about the importance of playing with a live ensemble.
But you need to play in an ensemble. You cannot learn about the Beethoven symphonies as well as you can on stage actually playing them. You cannot get a lot of that from the electronics. You can I don't want to say only, but it's really, really playing in an ensemble. There's no beating that.
Yeah. And how we can view a lot of orchestral rep through our smartphones. How do you think that medium or that venue has maybe influenced or over-influenced a coming generation who are learning audition rep from Instagram Reels? What's your thoughts on that?
It is an interesting distinction, and I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I am grateful that we have more resources and more accessibility than ever, because it allows people who maybe can't afford to attend concerts in person or have other difficulties or barriers to getting to the hall to be able to go online and view high quality performances from their laptop or from their smartphone. And that's able to invite more people in who maybe would have felt that they didn't have a place or weren't able to have that level of accessibility or inclusivity before. On the other hand, I strongly believe in the power of being present in a concert hall to hear an ensemble, specifically an orchestra, perform. There's truly nothing like it. I've learned so much, I would say lessons worth of material, by seeing professionals who I adore and respect do their thing on stage. Because especially if you happen to be in a major city with a major orchestra and you're studying with those musicians, and then you can go to their concerts, it's also this incredible synergy moment of, these are the things that they're telling me in lessons and demonstrating for me in lessons. And now I get to see them put it into practice on stage and get to see its effectiveness in the grand scheme of ultimately what we're going for here. Also being able to revel in the incredible musicianship and all the talent that's on stage across every instrumentalist on stage. It's incredible. So I would say if there are ways to be able to get people to go to concerts, I highly recommend it. If I'm visiting a city, unless my schedule's absolutely crazy and I don't have time, I'll make a point in advance to try and reach out to the timpanists and percussionists in that section and say, hey, like, I'd love to meet you for coffee, or hey, I'm coming to your concert. Like, I'd love to see you afterwards, or, and have that opportunity to form a genuine connection with that person, and being able to come away from that with that knowledge and expertise, and that level of network is invaluable. You can't really get that just by sitting at home and being on your laptop and on your smartphones. Ultimately the goal in making music is to create community with people and to be able to share space and engage in this beautiful activity in real time with people in the room. This isn't to say that there are so many incredible connections that you can make on social media, and a lot of incredible content that has been made and shared over social media. I mean, it's been a platform over the last 10, 15 years that has actually made careers, full careers entirely on social media. So I think there's a lot to be said for that too. But especially if you want to have a career in orchestral performance, or just performance in any sphere where you're making music with other people, those connections in person and attending live events are important, because not only do you get to hear how the music works in that space and you get to experience it in real time, but you also get to connect with those people who are doing the thing, especially if you're a student, who are doing the thing that you want to be doing. You're meeting them where they are. And that's a way to communicate that I'm here, I'm interested, I want to learn from you, and I want to be like you. And when a performer or an educator in those spheres hears a student say that, and they get the impression that they're approaching it in a very genuine and authentic way, they will always respond positively to that and always want to take that person under their wing or help them however they can. And those kinds of bridges are most effectively built that way, and not necessarily online. It's not impossible to build them over social media. It's really about music as community and fostering that sense of inclusion and belonging, and bringing people into the folds to do what we do and share in that experience together. It's so important to emphasize supporting each other, showing up for live music, live art of any form, because it's about that community and building that community in the most grassroots, authentic way.
I completely agree. That's fantastic. The bottom line: support live music and have human connections. I do want to go back to our previous question. You see how students and performers are adapting and being able to adapt their sound on the stage, but how have you seen orchestras adapt today?
Orchestras today, at least as far as percussion and timpani are concerned, are much more versatile, both in terms of what is expected of the musicians on stage, but also in terms of the array of instrumentation that you see on stage. Even just 20, 30 years ago, percussion sections don't look the way that they look now, gear-wise. And in my teachers' generations, you very much had people who would specialize in a particular area of instruments, or even a specific instrument in the section. You would have people that would be the cymbal player. You'd have people who would be the mallet percussion player. You'd have people who are the snare drum player, you know, in a percussion section. And those days, by and large, are, if not completely gone, close to gone. It's very much the expectation. And I also think the desire of the players on stage to want to do a little bit of everything. Because to my mind, at least that was my draw, and the appeal for me in being a percussionist was the ability to be able to play a lot of different instruments and a lot of different styles. And so in that way, I think the atmosphere has changed because people want to and need to be better equipped and prepared to play triangle on one piece, marimba on another piece, and maybe even have like a small little multi-percussions setup, because those are emerging much more commonly in orchestral rep now, where you'll have essentially a station of gear where you might have chimes, snare drum, crotales, cymbals, triangle. You might be playing all of these things on the same piece and have these really quick transitions and be prepared and equipped to be able to handle that. And so that's one way I've seen it change. The other way that I've started to allude to is even the scope of the instrumentation that's on stage. You know, the repertoire has evolved and composers are writing much more for us. And I think there's greater awareness and desire for awareness of not just the fact that we have so many different instruments, but a greater knowledge and desire for knowledge of what all of our different instruments can do, and trying to push the boundaries of performance on our instruments. In the grand scheme of things, percussion is a relatively new, young art form. When you think about the body of repertoire for the piano, for the violin, hundreds and hundreds of years on us, right? And so for us, I think we're in this kind of really amazing golden age in a way where we're in real time getting to experience and push those boundaries actively of what can be done. And composers are starting to explore that. And so you start to see things like water phones and, you know, different types of accessories that maybe you wouldn't have seen on a program in an orchestral context, even just 15, 20 years ago. Even though water phone is also, you know, it's been around a while, but there are lots of different ways that different instruments that we play are being incorporated and utilized in an orchestral context. And I'm really grateful for that because it's bringing greater awareness to audiences too, that what we do is really cool. We can continue to push those boundaries. And as percussionists are going through school and entering into the professional world, there needs to be that understanding and awareness of the world that they're entering. And that even at the point where they become professionals, it's going to continue to evolve. And it's going to evolve in ways that even now maybe we can't anticipate. But that's part of what you're signing up for in being a percussionist, is you're in the business of innovation. You're in the business of exploration and pushing those boundaries. And it's not just about the technical proficiency. It's about taking that technical proficiency and the ability and the desire to want to explore that across so many different instruments and genres. So I guess the best answer to your question is I've seen it expand in that way so far, but it's going to be endlessly interesting to me to continue to see it expand in ways that we don't even know about yet. But that's the fun part about what we do, is there has to be that desire and willingness to meet those challenges and unknown challenges and contribute to how our art form is going to continue to evolve and change over time.
I love that answer. As a percussionist, I think one of my favorite things to do is explore sounds and explore how I am arranging them and preparing those multi setups and that kind of thing. Choosing your different colors. I love that. That's one of my favorite things about being a percussionist. You did mention that the NOI+F also brings in living composers, folks who are like on the ground with the musicians, directing and informing. I feel like that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a lot of these players. I feel like modern composition, like you said, it could be anything. We don't yet know what the landscape looks like. So that's really exciting. I'm inspired by that.
It also fosters a further environment and desire for collaboration, which is something I touched on earlier. Those connections are everything. And I'm always telling students, if you have the opportunity to commission a work, especially you're still in school, there are many incredible people in the composition departments at these respective institutions. Work with them, get to know them. It will be mutually beneficial for both of parties or all parties involved, right? Because you get to have a work then that you get to contribute your artistic voice to and artistic input and perform. But then that composer is also getting their work out there and is also learning more and expressed clearly a desire to want to learn more about our craft and push the boundaries of what's possible. And that can be a conversation. And I think it's mutually beneficial for it to be a conversation because it pushes both the performer or performers and the composer forward. I absolutely encourage students to either commission or enter into consortiums where there's a group of performers who are able to get together and commission a work from a composer to get their work out there, and it gets your artistry and your work out there too. There are endless commissions and works still being written and performed now that have not existed before in instrumentation or in scope. And so it's really cool to also see those boundaries being pushed and those kinds of connections being formed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Shameless self-plug for Black Swamp. We've been commissioning several works over the past few years. I'll link a bunch of them down in the description, but that alone is inspiring because we get to see how our artists and educators are interpreting the instruments and what their expression looks like and sounds like. Very cool stuff.
Again, it's the spirit of collaboration, having people and organizations with like values, like missions, supporting one another and advocating for each other's work in the music industry. And in a time where it can be so easy to be divisive, it's more important than ever that people who think alike, want to achieve similar things, are working together because we're stronger together than we are apart. And that's really the spirit of what those collaborations get at, and why I greatly treasure my time at that festival and the partnership that I've been able to have with Black Swamp over the years is that mutual level of respect and admiration in supporting one another in our artistic endeavors.
I think that's well said. Alana Wiesing, thank you so much for being here and taking time to talk.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure, Nathan.
Thank you so much to Alana Wiesing for sitting down to chat with us. You can find this whole transcript in the description below. We'll have it on our Black Swamp Percussion Education Hub, so you can dig into all the informational nuggets that Alana was sharing today. If you like this windbreaker that I'm wearing, this Black Swamp Champion windbreaker is available on the Black Swamp merch store. That's right, we got hats, t-shirts, tchotchkes, water bottles, all that sort of stuff, so you can find that in the description below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.